Welcome to the Mavs Fans For Life podcast. I am Landon Thomas. I am joined always by my co-host Shahnavaz Makhani. We have a big episode for you, very inclusive with the fans on this episode. We're going to go over the NBA Rank 2023 that ESPN put out, and then also for the first time ever, this is Shahnavaz's idea. It is the Mailbag. Shahnavaz, how are you feeling, and what's your thoughts for this episode?
I'm excited, man. I don't, it's so funny because last week we talked preseason. I kind of said the same thing. I don't put too much stock into the preseason, and I don't put too much stock into these rankings that big media puts out there before the season starts. But it's fun. It's fun to go over, and it's fun to look at. I'm excited about the mailbag because I think we got some good questions. Obviously we want to keep our fans, interested and engaged, and it helps us grow our brand, and hopefully we get more next time. So I'm excited. Let's get started, man.
Okay, yeah, let's get started and start with the NBA Rank 2023. The Mavericks had 3 players ranked in the top 100. Let's just break this down, Shahnavaz, because let me read it word for word on how they're judging this top 100 verbatim. It says voters were asked which player will be better in 2023-2024. That really doesn't make sense to me, because if you look at the list, it's really the top 100 that they feel is the best players, because if it's who will be better in 2023-2024, why are there rookies on this list, and why is it not more tailored to most improved player candidates? What's your thought on how they premise that?
Like a list like this, you can put it out before the season starts. That's totally fine, and I understand the premise behind it, but you should make this list at the end of the season, right? Like compare it, like have a list that comes out preseason, like this one did, but have it like the top 100 players going into the year. It's not, here's who we think is going to be most improved or better than this player. No, these are just, if you had to take a pen and paper and write out 100 names of NBA players, these 100 would be on your list. Sure, the top 10 is probably going to be, the same. When you go from 11 to 100, I mean, you're talking about, so many different names that people could have on or off their list, right? So when you do this at the end of the season, you can take data and you can take statistics and say these were the 100 best players in the NBA.
Yeah.
And when you come back to the next season, you can then take that list and say, okay, well, now we're going to add this person, or somebody like Victor Wembanyama, who is a generational talent. They're going to knock this person off the list, right? It's kind of very similar to the way they do the top 75 of all time, right? Well, why did this person make it over this person, right? Like, give reasons for it. This kind of stuff is just, it's just for, I know I don't want to call it clickbait, but it's really just, to get fans kind of excited for basketball season, I think. Some of it doesn't even make any sense. I know we'll get into some of the rankings, and some of them are just ridiculous. When you look at where they have guys ranked and some of the reasoning behind it. I mean, it doesn't make sense, but I understand why they're doing it, but if it was me, I would do it at the end of the year.
It's just a way to get people to talk about the NBA. I mean, NFL's going on, MLB playoffs is going on. It's a way to get people excited about
Rangers, baby.
Hey, go Rangers, man. ALCS. So let's get into this, where the Mavericks stand, because they only have 3 players. 100 people are listed, and the Mavericks only have 3. Grant Williams made the list. He's at 97, and last year he was at 99. And then when you get to the second player on the list is Kyrie Irving. Obviously, we knew he was going to be high on this list, but we didn't think it would be this low. He is ranked 34th on this list. And then you have Luka Doncic. Where is he going to rank in the top 5? And when you look at the list that they have Giannis at number 1, Jokic at number 2, Joel Embiid, the MVP, at number 3, Luka Doncic number 4, and they have Steph Curry number 5. So Shahnavaz, 3 Mavericks make the list. 1 Maverick makes the top 30. Uh, First of all, let's start with Grant Williams. Let's get that out the way. He's at 97. Do you feel like he's ranked where he should be? Do you think he's too high? Do you think he should not be on the list, or do you think he's too low? He should be higher.
So Grant Williams, I think to be honest, I'm kind of surprised he was in the top 100. I don't think, if you look at what people have said about the Mavs offseason moves, and yes, Grant Williams was in our minds a fantastic move and kind of exactly what this team needed. But
yeah,
nationally speaking, and if you look at kind of what the so-called pundits are saying, I mean, they don't, they're not sold on Grant Williams being necessarily the piece that Luka and Kyrie need, right? So I'm kind of shocked that they put him in the top 100.
yeah.
And let's be honest, right? He kind of played third, fourth fiddle in a Boston Celtics team that, again, we talked about this last week, Landon, that he's kind of your, he's kind of your glue guy. He's kind of the guy. He was like another version of Marcus Smart, right? Which is why I'm surprised they let him go. Is he was kind of that guy that would get up into people's faces and would kind of impose his will and really, really try to rile the other team up. So I'm kind of surprised he was on the list, but I think that's a great thing. I think it shows what his value is. I think it really, I don't know if it's situationally a reason why they put him there, that, he's probably going to play better in Dallas than he did in Boston. But I think it just goes to show that I think his defense is super underrated. His 3-point shooting is underrated. And I know we're excited to see him especially play alongside Luka and Kyrie. So it's kind of a shock to me that he was in the top 100. But I think, at the end of the day, that's a good thing when you've got a team that's got three players in the top 100 of the NBA. I think that's a very good way to start off the season.
Yeah, they should have more. And not with this roster, but where they're at in win now mode. But just based off of Grant Williams, where he's at, I think it's fine. I think 97. Okay. We'll see how he plays. I think that's really, this list is this list, but like, I'm very tailored on how he plays this season because we really don't know. It could be the same as Boston, which is a good, valuable player. But he could, elevate his game to, one of the top 3-and-D players. He'll get more shots in Dallas. He'll get more open shots. And he has 2 playmakers who can really get him, the ball on the 3-point line. And also you mentioned that his defense, we mentioned it last week, just the versatility where he's at in this defense. He can guard guards. He can defend bigs, and he can play forwards really well. So, he's a plug-in player where he'll excel in any system that you put in. But when you look at the list for what it is and where he's at, you have Mitchell Robinson at number 100. You have Jonas Valanciunas at 99. You have Colin Sexton at 98. And you have Grant at 97. So when you have a comparison of where he's at and the players around him, Harrison Barnes at 96, it's a good ranking. And we'll see, like you said, I wish they did it at the end of the season so you could see the progress, how they were from the beginning of the season to the end of the season. But it is what it is. So I think for where he's at on this list, it's fine. So the next one is the real shocker for me. Might not be for you. It might be. But Kyrie Irving at 34. What's your thoughts on that?
There's no way Kyrie Irving is that low. If you're talking about the 100 best players in the NBA, there's no reason Kyrie Irving should be anywhere below 20, maybe. I would put him in the top 20 players in the NBA. You can make an argument he's top 15. Like, it's just, it's the whole narrative that we've heard ever since he got traded to Dallas is, he doesn't impact winning. And if you read the ESPN, article that they wrote, that's kind of a quote that they have that, oh, well, Kyrie Irving didn't impact winning when he came to Dallas because they fell out of the playoff race. Well, it's not really Kyrie Irving's fault. Let's be honest here. Everyone wants to put blame on Kyrie for the Mavs struggles last year, and this was a historic offense when Luka and Kyrie were together. It's hard to gel at the trade deadline, especially when you've got 2 alpha point guards, trying to play off of each other and really trying to learn. And you put, you include all the injury issues that the Mavericks had last year, all kind of the weird roster, movement that they had. And just, it was a dumpster fire anyway. So to put Kyrie that lower than guys like Trae Young, like there's no way that Kyrie Irving is not better than Trae Young. Like nobody could convince me otherwise. So to have him that low, it's just, I think it's just media bias. It's a way to peg him lower. And I hope he uses it, right? I hope he uses it as fuel going into the season that, everyone's discounting him. Everyone's talking about, well, Kevin Durant moved on to Phoenix and look how great that is. And, oh, look at James Harden in Philadelphia. What are they going to do without him? But if it's Kyrie, it's, oh my God, he's the reason the Mavs are awful. Like, yeah. I'm hoping he takes that and channels that and just balls out this year.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, we saw Kyrie's comments. He doesn't care about it, but I'm gonna say it for him. Just from what I've seen in the eye test, the stats say he's arguably top 15 right now. Kyrie Irving is a top 15 player. At worst case, he's top 20. He's anything below 20 is crazy. It's outlandish. And the lists are not about basketball, because these lists are about basketball, and you could tell they do not like him. He said it in his comments in IG, just about ESPN, his thoughts of the people at ESPN, just how they dogged his name, and it kind of really intrigues me where he would be at on this list if he did end up with the Lakers. He would be higher. So that's
100%.
It's so crazy, because when you look at his numbers, I mean, he averaged 27 points, 5 rebounds, 5.5 assists, and he finished as one of 7 players to average at least 25, 5 and 5. And he got and his shooting percentage was the special part about it. He shot 49.4% from the field, 37.9% from the threes, and then also 90.5 from the free throw line. But when you look at the 20 games in Dallas, he pretty much had similar numbers. The assists went a little bit up. He averaged 27, 5, and 6. But the field goal percentage went up even more, 51% from the field and 39.2% from three-point range and 94.7% from the free throw line in 20 games with Dallas. So if this list is talking about who will be better, wouldn't you go off the fact of what he did with Dallas compared to what he did with Brooklyn, which was even great, top 15, yep, top 20 worthy, and rank him pretty high on this list, since the premise is who will be better this upcoming season?
And that's exactly why the lists like these are just, I mean, it's, it's fun to read, right? It's fun to go through, and it gives us stuff to talk about, but yeah, I don't put any merit into it, right? It's, they're going to come out with a midseason ranking and say, well, this is why Kyrie is lower than he was at the beginning of the year, because he's only averaging 25 points instead of 27 points. It's going to be, they're going to find some excuse to knock him down, because that's just what, the national media likes to do.
Agree. Okay, so the last person on the top 100 is Luka Doncic. He's ranked 4th. I listed the top 5. What is your thoughts on Luka being at number 4?
It makes sense. I mean, I think Luka, in my mind, is a top 3 player in the NBA. I just think with his ability and kind of the way he's changed the course of a franchise. I mean, this team was, even with Dirk, was kind of, vying for the number 1 pick every year, and we just never got any lottery luck. And, we kind of fell into, luckily enough, we're able to trade with Atlanta to get Luka.
Yeah. You gotta give a shout out to the Kings too, right?
Yeah, thank you to Sacramento and Phoenix, 2 players who are no longer on those respective squads. Thank you for taking Marvin Bagley and DeAndre Ayton.
Yeah.
I mean, look, the knock on Luka is going to be his defense, right? It's going to be the fact that he complains to refs. And I get it, and I know we get tired of it too.
Yeah.
I think it's part of the maturation process for him. The technicals and the yelling at the refs, I think, is something he really needs to work on, right? And sometimes it is frustrating as a fan. to sit and watch that. But from a defensive perspective, I look at it. I don't think that it's him not trying. I think the frustration that you see when he's not running up the court is the fact you have to remember this guy played professionally overseas. This wasn't somebody who played in college where they don't play any defense, when you come into the NBA and you've got to learn and all that. This guy played with professionals at Real Madrid for, a long, long time. So players that, actually play defense, players and coaches and teams that preached, things like that. And I think for him, the struggles that he goes through when this team is struggling, I think he puts so much on himself.
Yeah.
You start to see that, right? And I think you start to see the frustration kind of boil out, and that is what causes him to maybe not run up the court. And sometimes he doesn't get the calls he wants. Somebody makes a boneheaded play, right? Somebody takes a bad shot. I think you start to see some of that boil over into his, and it kind of pours out on the court. That's something he's got to work on, obviously. But the hope is that he's still young, right? He's got plenty of room to grow. I mean, he's the ability that he has to add to his game is so crazy. Like he's got so much room to grow, and he's already a top 5 player in the NBA. In my mind, a top 3 player in the NBA. I mean, I'd put him ahead of Joel Embiid. In my mind, I think I would go Giannis, Jokic, and Luka as my top 3 right now. And I know Embiid won the MVP, so that's probably why he's ranked higher. But I think Luka's on a path. I mean, he's bound to win an MVP any one of these years. I think within the next few, and now having guys like Kyrie, having guys like Grant Williams, Derek Lively, like the right complementary pieces around him for the first time in his career. I think you're going to start to see a change in his demeanor as the season starts. And you're going to really start to see a different side of Luka Doncic that hopefully will propel him up this list.
Yeah, I mean, I get the complaining. I mean, he was playing with guys like Justin Holiday and Theo Pinson a lot. I mean, respectfully, but it is nerve-wracking when you don't have the quality of role players that you would think you would have when you're in win now mode, and they're starting to get those players, the quality role players at least around him, which is good. And then you have another all-star in Kyrie Irving, which it fits offensively, but like you said, now they have some defensive pieces that can surround those two players. And when you talk about the complaints, he does need to get better. I've said it, you've said it, and it's something that I don't mind him complaining, because LeBron does it, Draymond does it, Chris Paul does it. They're Hall of Fame players, but it's when he does the complaining, it's you have to save that for the fourth quarter. You have to say that for the second half. Yeah. You can't do that the whole game, and you can't. That leads to 5-on-4 possessions at the other end, like you said. Just you got to get back and let Jason do it for you. Let Grant Williams do it for you. Have a mouthpiece for him. So it helps your team in the long run. But
and now that's why you've got a guy like Grant Williams, right? Like you bring in a piece like that. Somebody who can be that outlet for you, right? Yeah. I don't think I've seen Kyrie kind of get into spats with refs. Obviously Luka has, but to have a guy like Grant, who we've seen get up into the face of Jimmy Butler, we've seen him get up into the face of, players on the Sixers and other Eastern Conference opponents when he was with Boston. Now you bring that physicality, and you bring that guy who can kind of hold Luka back and say, no, we need you on the court. I'll take care of this.
Exactly. Especially when they play the Phoenix Suns, because Devin Booker always tries to rile up Luka. But regarding this list itself, I don't mind it. I mean, to be honest, anywhere in the top 5, and you have Luka, it's okay with me, because honestly, I think Jokic and Giannis. I think Jokic should be number 1. I think Giannis. Those two players are the top 2 players in the league, and then I honestly think Stephen Curry, Luka Doncic, and Joel Embiid. You can even throw Kevin Durant. Any of those players are interchangeable to me. I feel like they could. Luka could be 3. I feel like he could be a 5. It doesn't matter. But I think as long as they have him in the top 5, that's okay with me.
Yep, I'm right there with you. Yeah, I think Jokic and Giannis just have such a unique skill set that it's hard to say like anybody's over them, right?
Yeah.
Just a combination of length and size, and each one is a very, we talk about, the word unicorns, right? When you talk about
Yeah.
guys like Wembanyama and these
Yeah.
guys, but these guys are truly, I mean, we've never seen this in the NBA before, right? And
Yeah.
you've got one guy, Giannis, who came into the league at like 112 pounds and now is like the biggest guy in the league. And then you've got another guy in Jokic who looks like he doesn't want to play basketball ever, and yet takes his team to the finals and wins. It's unbelievable what both of them have done, and it's just they're fun to watch. I mean, they seem
Yeah.
like genuinely nice guys. Like they seem like they just love the game, and it's going to be a great season. I'm hoping Luka puts himself up there in that company, because he's got the ability to be there. He's got the ability
Yeah.
to showcase talents. We haven't seen somebody like this before. If he just works on a couple different things here and there, I think you'll start to see the narrative change on him as well.
Yeah, I think he's a top two playmaker or passer behind Jokic. And he's a great scorer. That his scoring is also what gets him into his passing, and then rebounding for his size. He's a great rebounder as well. And he can play defense. And I know the notion is he doesn't play any defense at all. Last year he didn't. I'm be real. But the year prior, he was actually playing great defense, to be honest, in
Yeah.
stretches, and he has the ability to do so. But his load, it was so much on the other end. So I think, hopefully, with a full season of Kyrie, I think that will help him on the defensive end, just where he doesn't have to carry the team night in and night out. So I think we'll see Luka's best version of himself overall. You might maybe not in the stats, but just the eye test and in how he plays with better players around him.
Yeah, and the eye test is going to be huge, because now you've got a full season of Luka and Kyrie. You've had training
Yeah,
camp, you've had preseason, right? And granted, Kyrie's not playing, but you've had a full offseason of practice. You've had all training camp and everything like that.
yeah,
If their stats dip a little bit, it in my mind, it's kind of a good thing, right? Like Luka doesn't need to average 33 points a game, right? Like he doesn't need to be doing everything on the offensive side of the ball. Like if he's averaging 27, Kyrie's averaging 25, in my mind, that's kind of a good thing, because that means they're working off of each other. They're distributing the ball more. Like you'll see different metrics go up. Like Luka's shooting percentage hopefully should go up from the field overall and from three, right?
yeah,
Kyrie's, you mentioned it, Landon, did go up, right? His assist numbers went up. Like Luka could easily average a triple double this year.
yeah.
It's not out of the realm of possibility that he does that, right? And so I don't like looking at like just stats like points per game, right? Like that doesn't tell the whole story.
Yeah.
Especially when now you've got a guy that can complement you this well. I wouldn't be shocked to see both of their numbers drop a little bit, but the team actually, in fact, gets better.
And they had so many close games, and we'll move
Mm-hmm.
on to our mailbag. But they had so many close games as well, and that's going to help having Kyrie there, because Kyrie also led the league in fourth quarter scoring, and he also led the league in points per isolation as well. So just having another bona fide all star, that quality of player next to him that can make big time shots, and we always see Kyrie make big time shots. So that's good for him. Okay, so let's go into the mailbag. Shahnavaz, this was your idea, and it's a great idea to get the fans included into our podcast. So, Shahnavaz, you want to lead this?
I'm excited. Let's do it. So our first question, that actually is directed directly at you, my friend.
Okay.
This is from Joseph Sapoznikov. He's at JSAPOZNIKOV. Joseph, thanks for your question. This one states, Landon, feels like the Mavs are still missing a piece. Do you see them making a move to improve soon?
Ooh, that's a good question, Joseph. Thanks for listening to the podcast, and thanks for submitting a question to Shahnavaz and I. Are the Mavs missing a piece, and will they improve the roster soon? To flat out answer that question, yes, they are missing a piece. I mean, we've been discussing the starting lineup all of training camp who's going to be the fifth starter. Is Lively going to secure his fourth starter spot? Because Jason Kidd mentioned Luka, Grant, and Kyrie are the for sure captains and starters on the team. We'll see how the two spots go. So if you have battles for positions in the starting lineup, they are missing a spot, and I think they are missing a two-way player wing that can really get after it. And I'm not talking just like he can play defense, he can shoot, he can dribble like Josh Green. I'm talking elite two-way player. And I'll just throw these names out. There's no rumors going on with them, but OG from the Raptors and Grant from the Blazers, those type of players, those long athletic guys on the wing who can score and be a third option as well would be great for the Mavs. A big man, I could see them using a big man as well as a missing piece, but I like Lively. I mean, I really want to see him do well, and I really want to see him get thrown in the fire as a starter from day one, kind of like Devin Harris was when he was with the Mavs as a rookie. But I want to see him grow. I think he does great. We talked about it last week, so I won't go into the details. You can check out that podcast. But I really think he will fit, and he's what the Mavericks need. And once he has experience and has, he gets bigger over time, he's going to be even greater for the Mavs. So I think the missing piece is a two-way wing, and I'm gonna say that's it for right now. And I don't see them making a move right now. I mean, it's obvious they were trying with THJ and Rashawn Holmes. It took them so long to make sure he got to Dallas, but I don't see them making a move right now. I do see them making a move around the trade deadline, but I don't see it right now. Shahnavaz, what's your idea? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. You mentioned Jeremy Grant. I was kind of super excited when he got on the market this offseason. I was really shocked that Portland signed him to the deal that they did.
Dang.
Yeah, that was a total shocker because I thought the Mavs could have had him for cheap had he left Portland, especially with the Dame rumors flying around. But
yeah,
I assume they're going to trade him now. I think that's kind of the reason why they were like, let's pony up the money, because if he just balls out, they can get a pretty decent haul for him at the trade deadline. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I think Lively is your best bet at center right now. And the other thing is, like, if you would trade for a big man, if you bring in somebody else, you've already got Rashawn Holmes, who you traded for. Kleba can play center a little bit, in terms of like a small ball center if you need. And obviously there's the Dwight Powell issue. But do you really want to stunt the development of Derek Lively? Like, when you've got a veteran like Holmes, like, he can start. We talked about this last week, right, Landon? That your starting lineup from a center perspective may be a little bit fluid depending on matchups.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I like the idea of throwing Lively into the fire, and I think around the trade deadline, you're going to see, I think, definitely Tim Hardaway Jr. moved. I think that's a foregone conclusion this year, especially with an expiring contract. And I think this team now has an abundance of role players that you can kind of dip into, right?
Yeah.
Like Dante Exum's had a great preseason. If he starts gaining more minutes, do the Mavs then potentially entertain offers for Jaden Hardy if it gets them a better wing player, right? Like you now have the ability to kind of make those decisions as a GM if you're Nico Harrison, right? Like you can kind of weigh the pros and cons of, yes, Jaden Hardy is, and I'm a big Jaden Hardy fan. I'm not saying the Mavericks should trade him, but I'm saying, Landon, to your point, if somebody like OG Anunoby is on the table and you say, I've got to make a package around Jaden Hardy, you've got now the flexibility to do that without saying I'm going to completely rip from our depth, right? Like I've got nobody else coming off the bench. So I think there will be a move eventually.
And you're also in win now mode. You got to make those moves.
Right.
We love young players, but the Mavericks are trying to win a championship, and right now they're not in the realm of contenders. So you got to make those type of moves. If it costs you a Jaden Hardy, if it costs you a Josh Green, if it costs you Omax, to attach to THJ's contract. But you got to make those moves to put yourself in a position to contend over the next few years, and that's what you brought Kyrie back, and that's what you're promising Luka on the rest of his deal. At least you're trying to make those moves to get you in the position to contend. And I like what I've seen from Nico this offseason, so we'll see what happens throughout the season.
Yeah. All right. Our next question comes from @Spiffy_VR. This is from Mr. Anuj Bajaj, who I unfortunately have the pleasure of knowing. It's my brother-in-law.
There we go. Family. Yeah.
Family fan. So shout out to you, Anuj, for submitting 2 questions, actually. The first one is a little bit more insightful than the second, but do you think we need to add someone else to the front court, or do you think we can compete for a title with what we have? I think we need to make a wing or forward addition that can play D and pick and pop. So I think, we just answered that. And I think, Landon, that's kind of the primary question around a lot of Mavs fans, right? Like a lot of stuff that you see and lots of stuff that you hear is Mavericks have made moves, but you're kind of banking on the development of Omax and Lively and Josh Green. Is he in a contract year? Is he really is this the year that we see him put it all together? And you made a really interesting point that the Mavericks are in win now mode. Like, this isn't time to say we've got to develop people. Like, we've got, we'll give you a couple of years. Like, you're on a clock now, right? Like, you just missed the playoffs. Like, the clock is ticking to get your act together and get back to at least the semis this year, right? Like, in my mind, like, you've got to at least get to round 2, the conference finals, excuse me, to show, like, we made progress. Like, what we've done, everything that we've put for you on the table, Luka, like, this is what we're doing. And now we can do it again over next summer.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the clock, like you said, the clock is ticking. If it's not ticking, you need to go get batteries to put in that clock because it's more likely it's going to be set on the same time all day because the clock is ticking for the Mavericks. Not this season. I feel like this season is a progression type year where they're making that move towards where they want to go, and it's a transition year. I feel like they'll do okay. We'll get into that next week, but I feel like it's a like what the front office and the players are saying. It takes patience to build a winning team. I think it's a 2-year time span to make this team a winning team. I think we're in year 1. I think next offseason or trade deadline, you'll start to see, some type of moves by Nico to get this team in position to contend, at least in the Western Conference alone. And, but to answer the question, front court, yeah, of course, they could use front court players anytime to bolster their roster. Is it priority 1? I would say it depends on the player who it is. I mean, if it's a Jonas Valanciunas or if it's a Clint Capella, sure, I would take them in a heartbeat to improve this roster. But like you said, the development of Derek Lively, he's the 12th pick. He's a first round. He's a lottery pick. You got him to play defense. You got him to rebound. You got him to set screens and be that guy who can become these type of players that you're trying to trade for in a couple of years, but at least be serviceable this year and help this team win. And you really stunt that growth. If you get a player and he plays here for the next 2 years and Lively's only getting 10 minutes a game, or the kid goes back to Powell as the backup and Lively goes to third string. I mean, there's so many variables in that where you don't know what's going to happen. But sure, the Mavericks could use front court players. I didn't see much from Maxi Kleber. I didn't see much from Holmes in preseason. We don't take that seriously, but you do want to see something from those players. And Lively looked like the best of the bunch, and Powell actually played pretty good. So it looks like those two are the best guys. And then when you look around the league, those aren't the top centers in the league. So sure, they could use someone. They could use a big man.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. His second part of his question was, is there a chance Dirk can return for season 22 to make us title contenders? I'm just going to say, I'm pretty sure if Dirk was on this team, we'd be worse off. So when he's at 47, 50 years old. So no, thank you. We'll let him stay in the front office and do what he's doing. Our next question
I like that
is from Miha Ha. Thanks, Miha, for your question. Her Twitter handle is at Luka-Doncic. What's your confidence in Jason Kidd as a coach this season? Is there hope of him improving, or is it just a matter of time when we call for him to get fired again? Also, for the coaches on the for the changes on the coaching staff, what are your thoughts on what's happened in the preseason or in the off season?
I mean, we kind of dabbled in this all last season. I think this is a make or break year for Jason Kidd, and I'm not talking by his title or his job being on the line. He seems pretty close with the front office. I mean, they go everywhere together. They're really close friends, but I think this is a make or break to see who he is as a coach, because we saw in the first year, he was allowing players to play their game, and he was really strict on defense. The defense was so good, and their threes were falling. So he looked like a great coach, just implementing in empowerment in these players. And then last season, it seems like he didn't have any control of the players. He didn't, make adjustments during games. The out of timeout plays weren't as successful as the year prior.
The JaVale McGee experiment.
The JaVale McGee experience, that was a big failure. Naming starters at before they even had training camp. I guess there's progression in that, because he
only named 3 instead of 5. That's good.
Exactly. So I'm on the fence. I think, like I said, to answer the question, my confidence in Kidd, it depends what you're talking about. If it is dependent on taking this team into the playoffs and in making runs, I'm not as confident. I have to see something. I have to see the product to be confident in it. If it's to bring in top quality players into Dallas, I'm very confident. I mean, we hear Kyrie talk about him. We hear Grant Williams talk about him. We hear other players around the league have the respect. We see it at All-Star weekend. Other stars have respect for Jason Kidd, and they loved either watching him play when they're growing up, or they just love him being around him, and just his knowledge, his IQ, and just how he's able to relate to players. I think I have a huge confidence of this being a great locker room this year, but just his coaching ability, I don't have confidence yet, because I've seen two sides of it. So this year I will be able to fully say what my assessment is of Kidd. I didn't like it last year. I loved it his first year. So this is the make or break year.
Yeah, I said this last year, and when the season started, I said, I always give it till about December, right? I give it up until kind of the new year turns, before kind of really making an assessment on the year and players and coaches and things like that. And I think after December, I was just done with Jason Kidd. I think I just kind of gave up. I agree with you. I mean, I think we have to see kind of what he does. I mean, some of these late game decisions that he made last year were so bad. Some of the comments he made to the media were so awful. And it's just like, it felt like he was throwing players under the bus, and it felt like he wasn't being accountable. Like, you're the head coach, right? Like, even if the players screw up, like, you got to be accountable for that, right? Yeah. Like, that's kind of your job. So I want to see improvement in that. I also kind of feel, Landon, and tell me what your thoughts are on this, but I feel like Mark Cuban, in a sense, last year, when we all know that JaVale McGee, the signing was Jason Kidd's idea, and putting him in the starting lineup was his idea. I feel like after the success the Mavs had, that first year going to the conference finals, this is how I feel. Tell me what you think. I feel like Mark Cuban kind of was like, all right, I'm going to give more responsibility to Kidd. I'm going to let him be in on these player personnel decisions. I'm going to let him have a say-so, and we're going to bring in this player. Not that he doesn't anyway, right? But I think over potentially what Nico would say, right? And I think you saw that completely blow up in his face. And I think now when you go into the off season, obviously getting, the trade for Kyrie, I think had Nico and Kidd, I think in collaboration had that written all over them.
Yeah.
But going out and getting Grant Williams, getting, masterminding, getting off of David Bertans and getting Lively, and then being able to get Omax Prosper, the re-signing of Seth Curry. I feel like that's all Nico. Like that feels like it's got Nico's fingerprints all over it. So it kind of feels like now Mark Cuban was like, all right, you know what? I got to step back and I got to take the response. I tried to play GM for a bit. I let Jason Kidd try to do it. It blew up in my face. I'm going to let the actual GM go out and do what he needs to do to build this roster around my star player. That's kind of what I think. It feels to me like Cuban kind of realized, like, all right, man, like I gotta put the responsibility in the right hands.
I mean, Cuban's always going to have a play into any decision that happens in Dallas. But yes, like you said, from what I've seen, I see Nico is just more comfortable now, so he's able to take that ownership. And then Jason Kidd is he's a huge part of the front office. I mean, a lot of teams you see just head coaches and then the front office doing their thing, but he's in Dallas, it's all one. I mean, they all work together. And let's also give Michael Finley a lot of credit as well. He's very involved with some of the decisions. So it's really a five-headed monster for decision making in Dallas, and it's Cuban, it's Nico, it's Finley, Jason Kidd, and Dirk. I mean, they also get Dirk's thoughts as well in some of these decisions, and he's heavily involved too. So,
yeah, no, I mean, look, I think we both agree the offseason was great. It's probably the best offseason the Mavericks have had in quite a long time. I'm glad that even if it is more of a collaborative effort, right? I think you're getting the right pieces together if you're making these kind of moves.
Yeah.
So we'll move on. I've got a really interesting question here. This one is from Tarps Cards at THARPS_cards, CARDS. Do you think Omax opens the year on the starting roster, or excuse me, on the roster or in the G League? I've seen a lot of commentary saying he should be on the roster, but I haven't seen any preseason games. So it'd be interesting to hear what you guys have to say.
Omax, I feel like he will spend time in the G League, but I don't think it'll be as much time as we think. I feel like he will, and this is just personal opinion. I feel like he will start the season with the main roster, and then maybe in a couple months or so, he might get a week in G League, or just to get his confidence and see where he's at. But I feel like with Omax, you really want him to feel comfortable and stay around the team as much as you can. He's a first round pick, and he started off being penciled in as a probable starter, and then you go to the G League to start off the season. That wouldn't be good for me. Just I think you have him spend some time with the main roster the first couple months, and then in December or January, you have him spend a week or two with the G League just to get some confidence and get the ball in his hands and get improve his dribbling and improve his on the ball defense, just the foot speed and make sure he's ready. But I think you can still use him on the main roster. Everyone's not going to play 82 games, so I feel like you can still pencil him in off the bench and play a few games and get that experience slowly.
That's fair enough. All right, Landon, we're going to go rapid fire here. We've got a couple more to get through. You ready for this? All right. Quick answers on this one, my friend. This one is from Rami Walkowitz at ELSALVAJE Over under at 55 for Kyrie's games played. It's an obvious under for me. He's got his bag already, and now he can probably chill.
Ooh, okay. I think it'll be over. I mean, it's tough. It's really tough with Kyrie because you don't know. But I think this year, I think he will be over, but it won't be by much. I think you'll see 60 games maybe. I'm just going off of recent years, but I say he'll play 61 games this season.
61 games for Kyrie Irving. All right. This next one from at It's Uncle Drew _. Do you see Kyrie and Luka being the highest scoring backcourt in the NBA this year?
Yes, without a doubt. Shout out to Drew. Appreciate you, my dude. But I definitely think they're going to be the top backcourt for sure. Top scoring backcourt for sure. They were the top scoring duo last year. I mean, they didn't play that many games together, but backcourt, yes. In duo overall, maybe not. With Lillard in Milwaukee with Giannis, and then also you always got to pencil in Brown and Tatum. Oh, Booker and KD too.
Booker and KD. Yep. Yeah, there are a lot of good backcourts in the NBA. I mean, it's going to be hard to be the highest scoring, but if anybody's got a chance, it's Luka and Kyrie.
Yeah.
All right. Two more from @SlowHoopsFan. What's your opinion on the state of Mavericks fandom in 2023 and the discourse?
Oh, I love the fans. I mean, I love the fans. Mavs fandom, MFFLs, I appreciate them. To be honest, I work for them. We work for them. This podcast, Shahnavaz and I, our podcast is for them. So I love the fans. They always have my back. You've seen on the timeline, just different situations. So I always appreciate them and the support that they have. They can get hostile at times. I mean, dang, have you seen some of the comments with Jason Kidd and Dwight Powell? Yep. I mean, it gets ruthless out there, but I think that's any fandom. I truly feel like that's any fandom. When someone plays bad or when something bad happens, they go after the coach or they go after that player. So they can get hostile at times, but I love the fans.
Yeah, and I think it's especially when you have a guy like Luka on your team, it's easy to just expect greatness all the time without understanding that there's ups and downs to an NBA career, right? Jordan didn't win every year, right? Let's remember that. All right, my friend, last question of our first ever mailbag. This is from the Captain Chronic. Jeff, I believe is his name. The Mavs go 0-82 next year, but the Rangers win the pennant and go to the World Series. Is that a sacrifice you're willing to make?
Ooh. This is a tough one. Shahnavaz, I mean, you and I love the Rangers, but we also, watch and love this Mavericks team as well. So it's tough. 0-82. You would think this would be easy. Oh, Rangers win the pennant. Of course, you would go with that. But 0-82? I mean, can you imagine the backlash? Can you imagine the backlash? 0-82? Can you imagine
First preseason game, Mavs Twitter wanted to fire Jason Kidd. If this team goes 0-82, they're going to call for Mark Cuban to sell immediately.
And what does that do to Luka? What does that do to Kyrie?
Oh, God.
What does that do to
everyone's gone?
Front
you and I are going to be in the starting lineup.
I mean, this might go from a Mavs Fans For Life podcast to a Rangers Fans For Life podcast. I mean, 0-82. I mean, but a Rangers.
But Rangers keep in mind, he said Rangers win the pennant, not the World Series. They're just in the World Series.
Oh, well, that changes things. I mean, that could happen right now.
See? And that's my answer. It doesn't matter because it's going to happen anyway. Rangers are making the World Series. You've heard it here first.
I'm going with Shahnavaz. Was that all the questions?
That's it. We're good. Our first ever mailbag.
Shahnavaz, I've said it earlier. I'm giving Shahnavaz all the credit for this mailbag. This was a great idea by him. He pitched it a few days ago. We both put it out on Twitter. We got like 8 or 10 questions. I honestly was freaking out that maybe we wouldn't even get one. And then the questions started rolling in. I was like, okay, Shahnavaz, this is great. Let's keep doing this. So I like it. Shout out to you.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it, man. Thanks for taking the idea. I think it's always fun to hear what the fans have to say, especially, people that listen to the pod and now hopefully watch the pod on YouTube. We'll do it again. It's something that we're gonna keep as a regular thing. So be on the lookout next time Landon or I ask your questions. Make sure you submit them, and when we get this episode posted, we'll tag all y'all in it. Come back, listen to our answers, and tell us what you think.
Yeah, definitely 100%. And make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like, thumbs up, and Follow us on social media as well. A lot of great things for Mavs Fans for Life, as you see today, or just the past few weeks. We're really evolving and really giving the fans what they want to hear. And I really appreciate all the writers and everyone who's built this company. I started it from scratch, and the writers and just everyone involved, current and past, helped me build it to where it is today. So kudos to y'all. And thanks for listening to Shahnavaz and I on another episode, the first Mailbag of the Mavs Fans for Life podcast.